These strange but true crime stories have unsolved endings that were quite unexpected to case detectives. Despite analyzing all crime scene evidence and following every last lead, forensic and otherwise, baffled experts are shocked that these crime stories are still unsolved years later. Number 5. The strange but true story behind the unexpected ending of Don Kemp remains an unsolved mystery 40 years later. Though case detectives do not suspect foul play, his mother believes the crime scene evidence points to a true unsolved mystery, and the case is certainly filled with many unbelievable moments. John was 35 years old in 1982. After a life-altering experience behind the wheel changed his entire world perspective, he unexpectedly sold most of his belongings and traveled to Wyoming to write a book about Abraham Lincoln. The last time Don was seen before he went missing was on November 15, 1982, just 2 weeks later. After he became a missing person case, people working at a museum in Cheyenne would later tell an investigator that they had seen Don alone. They remember him because he left behind his personal belongings, such as a briefcase containing traveler's checks, diaries, and driving glasses. Later that day, he called the museum to ask about his missing briefcase, which had been found by staff. He said he would return for the missing briefcase, but the people at the museum never saw him again. By 10 a.m. the next day, Highway Patrolman Randy Teeters had found Don's car parked along an exit ramp on Interstate 80. Crime scene investigators noted that the missing car was abandoned approximately 40 miles from the nearest town, with nothing but miles of prairie on either side. Some missing items were found strewn about, and most importantly, there was a set of footprints in the snow. A crime scene investigator followed the footprints to an empty barn, where detectives later found 3 of Don's missing socks and a bundle of sticks that looked as if they'd been gathered to start a fire for warmth. In a strange but true twist in this potential true crime investigation, a 3-day search was suddenly called off due to a freak blizzard. Any hopes investigators had of finding the missing person and solving the mystery soon had disappeared, and whoever had done this to him could have gotten away. In the months that followed, investigators noted 2 potential sightings of Don. A bartender in the city of Casper, Wyoming, claimed he served the missing person 180 miles from where his car was found missing. Another strange story, if true, spotted the missing man at a traveling exhibit showcasing Abraham Lincoln memorabilia. In April of 1983, Julia Alo, a former coworker of Don, found she had missed 5 phone calls and had 2 messages saved on her answering machine. The man sounded urgent and said that he wanted to speak to Julia and left a phone number. Her number was unlisted, so this story was extra strange. When Julia called, a different man answered the phone. Julia asked if he was Don, and he initially said yes, then corrected himself. She asked to leave a message for Don, whom she'd worked with for 10 years and once knew well. Police traced the mysterious calls to a trailer rented by a man named Mark Dennis in the city of Casper, the same city where a bartender claimed to have served Don. During a police interview, Mark Dennis claimed to have no idea who Don was or what had happened to him. He cooperated with police and then mysteriously disappeared after 3 weeks of investigation. The unsolved mystery only gets stranger from there, as Don's remains were found 3 years after he disappeared just a few miles from his car. Police found no evidence of foul play and believed he perished in the blizzard, and so his cold case files were closed. The case was solved with no crime, but this unexpected ending does not satisfy his family, who believed this was a true crime mystery, and that it had happened to him at a mysterious trailer in Casper. Number 4. On March 27, 1971, a body was found in Staffordshire in a rather dark and disturbing way. The true crime mystery began after an off-duty officer walking his dog literally tripped over the partially buried remains of a man whose final resting place had become uncovered with time. At first, police believed the body could have been missing for decades, though a forensic investigation would later reveal that it had only been 19 months at most. The crime scene evidence was quite peculiar and thoroughly puzzled investigators. They'd found the body of a man wearing nothing more than a pair of mustard-colored socks with pink heels and a lady's wedding ring. He'd been left bound in a kneeling position and left seemingly at random. Crime scene investigators knew there was no way the missing person could have done this to himself, but further forensic examination revealed no visible cause of his demise. While further investigating the strange but true crime story, police learned he had short brown hair, was about 5 foot 8 inches tall, and between 23 and 39 years old. Most importantly, his remains showed evidence of a neck condition that would have made his head lean noticeably to one side. He also had significant dental work done less than 6 months before he was put into the ground. Despite all of this evidence, and despite a sketch made by law enforcement, nobody recognized the missing person. The true story behind this strange case remains an unsolved crime, though investigators have their theories. Anthony Hardy, a man who took the lives of 3 women between 2000 and 2001, was known to dress his targets in special socks. The notorious individual grew up in Wenshill and was living here around the same time when the body was found. So a criminal connection is there. However, since Anthony Hardy was not known to target men in any other cases, law enforcement investigators have never been able to fully explain this crime. Police made an appeal on the 50th anniversary of the discovery for answers in this strange but true crime mystery, with updated sketches of what he may have looked like in life. Still, the strange case remains unsolved. Number 3. On the morning of April 11, 1934, a police officer investigating a theft at a local cheese store noticed a much larger crime scene gathering at the local cathedral. Across the street, a crowd was fawning over a major art heist. The Ghent altarpiece consisted of 12 panels of expensive religious art. 2 of the panels had been stolen. Left behind was a mysterious note that read, quote, "Taken from Germany by the Treaty of Versailles," and it was written in French. Unfortunately for investigators, the crowd had already contaminated much of the crime scene evidence by touching the empty frames, wiping away any fingerprints left behind by the criminal. The case went unsolved with no further leads until 19 days later, when the Bishop of Ghent received a ransom letter. The thief wanted 1 million Belgian francs, and the church wanted to pay the ransom. To prove they were serious, the criminal left one of the missing panels in a bag of luggage for investigators to pick up. Now only one panel was missing, a piece called the Just Judges. If the ransom wasn't paid, it would be destroyed. Only a quarter of the ransom was paid, and after a number of angry correspondences, the mysterious ransom letters abruptly stopped in October of 1934. Crime investigators soon learned of a stockbroker who, before passing away, told his lawyer that he'd made carbon copies of every ransom note and told him about a final unsent letter. When the lawyer showed the letter to investigators, it said the painting was in a location that nobody could get to without attracting attention, which puzzled them greatly. Since then, it was assumed that the broker was responsible for the art heist. The true crime community speculates that he could not have acted alone, as at least 2 people would have been required to take the large paintings. While some believe the painting was hidden in the cathedral itself, the true story behind this famous crime case remains an unsolved mystery, as does the second criminal party responsible. Number 2. On March 29, 1981, Aboriginal communities in Australia were shocked and disturbed when a dark true crime took place in Alice Springs, Northern Territory, a crime that led to the unexpected endings of 2 Indigenous people and nearly ended the lives of many more. Near the Todd River was a large camp that was home to many Indigenous people. They were gathering for breakfast when someone produced a bottle of sherry. They said the bottle had been found under a tree the night before just outside of the John Flynn Memorial Church. If the stories were true, then this bottle had traveled over a mile and swapped hands 6 times by the time it reached the Todd River camp that morning. After only a few sips from the bottle, 2 people met unexpected endings, and 16 others were rushed to the hospital for breathing difficulties. A forensic investigator found their stomachs full of strychnine. When tested, the bottle also contained the same substance. Police tracked down all of the criminal suspects who had transported the bottle from the church to the Todd River camp. According to their investigation, none of them had tampered with the contents or had any knowledge of the true story. The bottle was eventually traced back to a store, but the person who bought it could not be identified. No criminal suspects were ever named in the case, although decades ago, crime scene detectives remembered someone had used the same chemical on dogs around the city. After the incident involving a bottle of sherry, someone took the lives of 23 animals between January and March of 1981. Either the poisoner was back, or else it was a copycat. It was speculated that this time the criminal had escalated from animals to people. Years later, a convict named Andy ALBURY had made a shocking criminal confession. In 1983, he took the life of an indigenous woman named Gloria Pendon and was quickly arrested and found guilty. Since then, he's confessed to many other crimes, but after more investigation, case detectives do not find all of his crime stories to be true. More than 40 years later, it seems that the unsolved mystery behind the Alice Springs case will most likely never be solved. Number 1. The strange but true story of George Murdoch took place in the Scottish city of Aberdeen in the 1980s. Before the 58-year-old taxi driver would go on to become an unsolved mystery, his wife of 37 years, Jessie, often worried about him working at night. George reassured her that he was staying safe, and on September 29, 1983, he became the victim of an unsolved crime. At about 8:35 p.m., George picked up a fare on Queens Road. He radioed the control room to let them know he was heading to Qatar. A few moments later, a criminal passenger used a wire to take George's life. The struggle spilled out of the car and was witnessed by 2 cyclists who left to call the police. By the time the investigators were examining the crime scene, they only had a body. The person responsible for the crime had already fled. Why the unbelievable crime took place is a mystery, as George had always said he would simply hand over money if he was ever attacked. The criminal got away with a small amount of cash, but to investigators, it was clear taking George's life was the main motivation, though why remains a mystery. An appeal for information in this unsolved case was made. The cyclists described a short man in his 20s with dark, short hair. 3 weeks after the unsolved crime took place, police received an important tip. On the night of the crime, just 15 minutes after George lost his life, a man matching this description entered a restaurant not far away. His hand was opened up as if he had been fighting. Splatters of DNA evidence even landed on the counter, which could have helped solve the mystery, but they'd been cleaned by the time investigators arrived. It was an unbelievable ending to an unsolved case that was almost solved. Since then, the police have made numerous appeals for more information, but the case remains a true crime mystery. In 2022, police revealed they wanted to speak to a potential criminal suspect who had been to the Wilson Sports Bar in September of 2015. He was in his 50s or 60s and was wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt. Police believed he had information that could help solve the case, but more details as to why were never released. There's currently a £50,000 reward for information that solves the case, and anyone with information should contact 101. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.